We wanted to start by asking you how you were. Did you have an additional question to that?
No.
Okay.
No, just.
Which were? When?
Like now, how is everyone?
How's everybody doing?
Right now?
Yeah.
Tired? Yeah. No. Frustrated. Good. There's a mix of emotions in the room. Okay. Good. Satisfied. Excellent. So this is the last in the summer series of these discussions, and thanks for coming out. This is Sibyl O'Malley, and I'm Mira, for those of you that don't know. And so Sibyl and I have worked together for about 7 years or so. Less?
Wow.
More? Well,
Since
8 years. I mean,
oh, well, okay, 07. And then before that, actually, Bridesmaid.
Yeah. So we've made a number of full-length pieces together. Sibyl has written the plays, and I've directed and choreographed them, and we've kind of made them together. And then I've also worked on some plays that she's written that I've kind of been in or worked on for her, with her. And we really love each other a lot, so we're happy to be here and have a conversation. And we thought that we would start by playing some music, and people can just do whatever they want to do. They can take a nap for 3 minutes, they can dance, they can, whatever moves you, but this is generally what our rehearsals are like, I would say, for a good part of it. So we'll just play some music and
So I brought this music because I thought you were
enjoy ourselves. Welcome. We're just going to have a little time in the beginning. We're going to put on some music just to orient you right now. You can do what you wish. We like to surprise each other with music, so Sibyl has got a special. I've been driving.
Just in case like it's shy, I can actually hide behind it.
Positive. Feel it, okay.
There's more Michael.
Good. Should always be more Michael. All right. So this is Behavior with a Muse with Sibyl O'Malley. Shall I start with a question?
Sure.
Okay. We thought for this first bit of time, we'd ask each other questions about things that we didn't know about the other after having worked together for so long. And then we'll take a little break, and then we have the potential, if people are feeling like it, to do something interactive and creative. And if people just want to be left alone to their own devices, then we won't do that. And we can just have a discussion, okay? I have a lot of questions here.
You do?
Okay, let's start with this one because I think it relates to what we were just doing. So I note that when we work together, and I saw this particularly this last time when we redid Yes is a Long Time, that I'll be in the studio working nonstop for like 10 hours straight. And then I'll say to Sibyl, we need a scene or we need a monologue or something like that. And Sibyl will go, okay. And she'll write for a little while. And then I'll see that she's eating. And then I'll see that she's taking a walk. And then I'll see that she's like dancing somewhere. And then she'll come back and she'll say, okay, I got it. And I'm like, how's that possible? But then sure enough, it's really brilliant. So I don't think I've really ever asked you about your relationship to relaxing or wandering in your process, and I'm interested in just hearing a little bit about the importance of that because it seems very important to you.
Yeah.
Like taking breaks or that space. Yeah,
Right.
Taking breaks.
My concern thing in rehearsal is always when are breaks and what are the snacks. Yeah, and I wish I could say I did that by design because I think it's good for my brain or for writing, but it's really I just only have so much of an attention span, or I just find that I can work for a certain period of time and then my brain starts to tighten and try to make something happen, and rarely will something good happen when that's my approach. And obviously you can't be having fun every minute that you're making art. So I don't want to, pretend that it's always like I just wait for this moment. But I do find that, you know, I get my ideas when I'm walking my dog and when I'm sweeping. I love sweeping.
Me too.
I think that's why I have wood floors, just because I just like to sweep.
Yeah.
And yeah, or like, you know, I'm working on a new project and we did a teleconference to come up with ideas, and I just thought, I don't think I could do that again. It's just not any fun. There's no sensation in it. And so I think, you know, so I've suggested let's meet in person, but I think it's also about like stimulating other sensations other than just the sort of goal-oriented brain. I mean, one of my practices is, and I'm just prettying it up by calling it a practice, but I walk my dog every day, and that's one of the few times a day where I have no agenda for my brain, and I think it's one of the, I think it's important. Sometimes it you know, yields ideas. So yeah, I'm just not as hard a worker as you guys are. I couldn't do it. I'm the first, they're dancing in rehearsal. I'm sitting there and I'm the first one. I'm like just so antsy.
So that, I had another question. I don't want to break our format already, but I'm just going to double up. Okay. Is that one of my questions was, what has your dog taught you? And you mentioned your dog several times in this answer, so I thought...
It's hard to say because I have a dog and a cat.
And your cat, yeah. Animals, really.
Yeah. My dog and I are so similar that it's hard for me to look at my dog. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like seeing... I like his faults are my faults, so it's hard for me to think of him as a model, although I adore him. Yeah. I mean, we're like brother and sister. We actually, it was my mom's dog, and when my mom passed, I took the dog. So it really does feel like we're siblings in this way. And we do have some of the same behavior that shows up when you're raised by an alcoholic. and many other wonderful things too. But we're both a little codependent, and like a little, you know, the dog, when we walk, every 5 seconds he looks over his shoulder to see that I'm there with a leash on, you know. So, and today I walked him without his leash, and he walked behind me. It was, I mean, once he got to the good spots of our walk, he was out in front smelling, but anyway, so that's my dog. I guess I see myself, and it's, maybe it gives me compassion for myself, you know. And my cat is more of a teacher, because my cat is just big time do whatever you want, as people with cats probably know. I mean, he finds the best spot to do his work, which is sleeping. Right. And
deep research.
Yeah, and he likes to be near people, but not that interested in them personally. The way I am, you know what I mean? Like, I like to be near people, but I also like to find out about what they're doing and what they're thinking and all that stuff. And he's just a pleasure seeker in a great way. And he's a great advocate for himself too. He's a big complainer. He's an orange cat. They're big talkers. He's a big complainer.
He is a big complainer.
Me and the dog kind of take orders from the cat, and we're trying to learn from the cat. So. To that was more of a personal answer, I think, than maybe artistic, but those behaviors definitely, you know, obviously overlap.
That's a lot of stimulus to live with. Like, that's a lot of teaching to have right there on a daily basis. Yeah. And what about the process when your cat was peeing on the pillow nonstop for a while?
Gosh. Really? We're going to talk about that?
I'm just interested if that taught you anything about...
Yes, it taught me about boundaries.
Great.
The cat's not allowed in my bedroom anymore. Someone pees on your bed, they can't come in your bedroom anymore. But I had to get the help of...
You're so strict, Sibyl.
I know. Later, if anyone wants to hear about my experience with a pet psychic, I'll tell you on the break. But it's not. I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay. Those are my first impressions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that came up when I was thinking that that we talk about, and I think we might have I know we've talked about putting this in a play. I don't know if it made it into St. Cuthbert, but there was a part of the play where we talked about where there's some direct address to the audience and where the performers basically said, so this part is the part of the show where we completely fail. We've been failing kind of all along, but here's where we completely fail and this show is just really going to fall apart. So I wanted to talk to you about failure and how you think about it or how you use it in art making, because I feel like even though it's success and failure, those words are such pitfalls. I think success it can be a big pitfall too, but just how you think about it and how you use it, and maybe mistakes might be another word too. If
I feel like I think mistakes are different than failure, and I love mistakes, and I use all of them. In fact, for me, a show is going really well if the majority of what's on stage is all mistakes that happen in rehearsal that I just said, okay, just keep that. And because it's inevitably more interesting than what I was thinking should happen, or, creating a container for something to happen. But let's be honest, I'm still kind of, even if I don't have a clear idea, I'm kind of willing some quality of something, and then something will go off and it'll always be great. So I try to keep all the mistakes, and I really love mistakes. But failure, I would like to say that I don't feel failure, but that would be a lie, because I feel it a lot. But something actually that my dance students have taught me about failure that I was able to see kind of modeled in them and then started to apply to myself was that, I would be mentoring these students in their choreography, and inevitably they'd come to a place where they actually saw what was happening on stage, and they would come to me crying and they'd say they felt like a failure. And to me, I was thinking, well, all that's happening is you're actually seeing reality. And that's not failing, you're seeing reality. And that's exciting. But when your reality doesn't match with your fantasy of what you thought you were supposed to be, you feel like a failure. And so then I started to look at my own life and see when I would feel failure, every 5-10 minutes, and I would think, well, what fantasy that never existed anyway about myself? It never existed. So why am I upset that I'm not a thing I never was anyway, right? And so, but it's hard sometimes to look at reality, but then I feel like that's such an exciting space because you're actually on the ground of what your capacities really are, or I went to this exercise class with David this morning. It was really hard at a gym. I haven't been to an exercise class at a gym in 10 years or something like that. And so, we went and we're doing all these things that are really hard for the core and push-ups and stuff, and I can watch my mind being I'm in shape. I'm not, apparently. I'm in shape. I should be able to do these things, right? And then she'll say 10 reps, and I'll start the first one, and then I'll go, okay, I need to stop now. And I can watch my mind go, you're such a failure, you can't do this, right? But and I had a light relationship to this, so to me it was really funny to kind of watch my mind, but then I can see how that happens in much larger circumstances. But kind of watching how I was actually faced with the reality of my actual strength, or my relationship to certain muscles, or my ability to coordinate my body in a certain way. And it was much less than what my mind would like it to be, but it's what is actually happening in my body. And so there's no failure there, there's just me actually relating to myself directly, which is all I hope to do all the time. And I'm interested in why we feel like failures when we're actually doing the very thing that is most exciting, which is relating to ourselves directly and to our reality directly. And so I still feel failure, but I feel like I have that tool to kind of process when it's happening. And sometimes I can't catch it. Sometimes I'm just hit by a wave of like, I'm a big loser. You know, I'm just hit by that wave, and then I just have to ride that wave for a while and, you know, hide my head or go under the bed or whatever for a while, and then come out and be like, okay, let's just go on with our day now. But if I can catch it before it hits me, then I just go, hey, we're in reality right now. This is an exciting moment. This could be an exciting moment because we're in reality and we're really seeing ourselves. So, yeah. And also it's interesting with other people's mistakes because I recognize when I see other people make mistakes, I love them. And when other people point out my mistakes, I hate it. And so I just, and like, it's like, why can't I offer myself the same like compassion that I offer other, I don't see them as mistakes when other people make mistakes. I see them as this like brilliant evolution of the situation. And reveals them in this kind of very beautiful, again, direct way to who they are. And yet somehow, you know, when I make a mistake and someone points it out, I'm like, no. So I find it harder to carry that out from the rehearsal room to everyday life, but I try to do that too. But that's a process. I mean, it's a practice to try to do that. But I really believe in it. I really believe in mistakes, and I really believe there's no such thing as failure at all. In fact, I think the word is just not useful, and I don't think the idea of failing makes you better. Like, you know, like there's some kind of idea like, well, you failed and now like you learned something from your failure, you know, and I don't know, my relationship to myself and having, you know, been with students for many years, is like, they don't really feel better. They feel like failures. And then maybe later they look at the situation in a different light and then they learn from it, but they're not looking at it as a failure then. So I just feel like that idea of failure as being something positive is not useful. Instead of thinking, I'm seeing reality directly, that's positive. To see reality directly is positive. But failing in doing something that you should have done or that you wished you could have done and can't, I don't know. I just don't find that useful.
Yeah. Can I borrow your pen?
Yeah.
Because I thought of all these good questions while you're answering.
Oh, okay. Can I ask you another question?
Okay.
It's kind of related to what we were just talking about. So when we've been in process, I think we've both seen each other in a lot of fear, in moments of fear, in and out, just in our life and friendship too. And I'm interested in, I mean, it's a moving process, right? But right now, what your relationship is to fear and what your, yeah, that's all. What your relationship is to fear.
I think it's similar to my relationship to failure, is that I know it's not totally real, and I have a friendlier relationship with it. So for me, like, talking about failure in a show is a way to kind of discharge the power of that word and kind of have fun with it and be like, we might fail and it's going to be okay, and that's going to be part of the show. And it reminds me that it's human to not do things perfectly. And somehow that, just talking about it, especially in a rehearsal room, it becomes less dangerous. It becomes more an element or something you can play with. So on the one hand, you know, I have fear. Some days I wake up in incredible fear. And then but I have experience with having that feeling, but knowing that it might not be based in reality, my fears, and also that it might just be like weather that's there for then, and that, you know, my job is just to be as friendly and compassionate with myself while I'm having one of the feelings that I dislike and that I find unattractive. to remain loving to myself during that time. You know, I mean, I do things like I call people and I, you know, get a little reality check and we could laugh about the fear, you know, or I can exaggerate it. That's one of the things I love doing in my work is just taking the stuff I'm afraid of and exaggerating it. And again, I feel like that makes it something more playful. And also, you know, just I've started having, I guess you could call it experience or faith that just gives me a little bit of space between me and my fear so that I can say, well, this might, you know, these things I fear might happen or might be true, but there might be another version of these events. And I'm just going to stay open to them. You know, when I feel myself starting to like cue the sad music that goes with the story of my life, you know, I'm like, okay, we have that option.
Right.
It's so familiar, but let's like maybe just assume for the next hour you're okay and everything isn't completely going down the tube. And so then I'll go and I'll make dinner and I'll, you know, or whatever, and then I'll notice I don't feel quite as afraid.
And then do you check back in with the story and say like, okay.
Not for a couple of days. Usually I'm like, whew, I gotta away from that. Whew, you know. But I'm familiar with the story, and I do like, you know, some maintenance work, you know, through writing and through talking to like my spiritual mentor about it, you know. I feel like there's something else. And I should say, sometimes none of that works, and I just have to be in fear, and that's where the compassion is so important. And I've had artistic processes where I could not get out from under the fear. And I didn't feel good about the work. And that's one of the things that I realized at graduate school and in working with you is like, I don't have to, like, I don't thrive in scary, miserable situations. So I'm not going to put myself in them as much as possible.
Right.
And it's possible to make really rigorous, fun, exciting work with kind people. And that's been kind of a, for me, I mean, that was kind of a revelation, you know.
Yeah, that you're not under the thumb of like other processes, other people's processes, you mean, or? Or
just, you know, all these ideas we have in our culture about, you know, you know, being a genius justifies any behavior, or, you know, there's all kinds of myths about artists and misery.
Yeah, I had that too. Like at a certain point after working in New York for a period of time, I just went, I don't have to work with people like this if I don't want to. And I remember distinctly there was this one moment with this company I'd been working with, and they were so abusive, and I finally was like, came in and I just said, I'm leaving because I don't have to like be in this conversation. And it was so scary to do that, to kind of say, I don't agree the way you're relating to me. You know, I don't agree to participate in this relationship anymore. But it was very empowering to make it through that.
I'm curious too, because for me, it's part of a bigger shift, cultural shift that happened in moving to California. So I'd be curious to hear from people at the break about if that resonates with them. I mean, it may be that I was carrying all this East Coast baggage that was only in my head, but it does feel like the idea of, I don't want to be happy.
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds shallow, but kind of put a priority on that.
Yeah.
Feels like something that I associate with my living here.
Yeah. That's a good association, I think.
It may not be, obviously, it's, you know, that's just me.
I was wondering, and related to fear too, and to go back to the first things you were saying is, so when you're writing something and it's really not coming, and you feel the tightening happening, and you take whatever breaks you take, or take a walk and come back, and it's still not there, and it's still not there, and it's still not there, what happens?
Well, one thing I do is I do a lot of overwriting and list making. So I'll say, what would just be the most delightful thing to happen at this point in the play? Or what would be the thing that hasn't happened at all in the play at this moment where it feels like I know what needs to happen? It's that kind of moment. But to just completely open myself up, and then say I'm going to come up with 40 ideas. So then I get all the bad ideas out, or I get all the ideas that I think should work out, and then I start just getting into nonsense.
Right.
And then sometimes there's something there.
We make a play.
Yeah.
Based off of that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, and then it's less about, I find that like kind of maybe making a goal bigger than the actual thing I need. So like for me, lately I've been finding that if I say, well, I'm going to sit down and write the whole play, I actually do write quite a bit. Not usually the whole play, but more than if I was like, let me just suffer through 3 pages, So, and it also gives me this permission to just put something down, just go for it, just run, And by running, you're gonna miss a lot, but you can come back, And by running, maybe I won't be so careful, and some things will slip in, like you're talking about, like mistakes or offbeat ideas that, or feel like there's something interesting and genuine in them, or
Nice.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
And it's kind of about that, and it's kind of about some of the things you were talking about before. And it's about this like balance between, the need to focus and the need to work, and balancing that with this idea of play and how you create that in a rehearsal space, like maybe very concretely, like what is needed. Because when we make shows, we've made some shows with some pretty funny deadlines. Like go to Thailand, meet some people, and 10 days later do a show with them. That's a funny deadline.
Especially when they're supposed to speak English and they don't.
Anyway. So yeah, how do you like have anything happen in that situation? Like where there's a pressure, and when you do need to like really hit marks and get certain numbers, like
right.
How do you balance that with a sense of possibility and play, and not being in your maybe more willful mind?
Well, I kind of have the same thing as you. As soon as I feel like I'm supposed to do something, it's horrible. Like as soon as and in my life too, as soon as it's like I have to do this, it's horrible. Inevitably. And but it's what I do is horrible generally, meaning like either from it's really, really bad, or it's just really boring or not interesting or not connected. And in the rehearsal room, like if I have to stage a scene, or for me it's, I don't know, some of you may know this term, in theater there's this term blocking, when you block something, which means you kind of tell people where they're gonna stand for things, and like if I feel like I have to start doing that, it's I should just leave the room. But and for me that's that like tightening feeling of like, okay, the show's going up in an hour and we have to do this. And so so in order to combat that, I think that everything I need I have in the room already, and that it's already working. It's just a trick that I just say to myself. I say it's already working. There's nothing here that's not working. and it's just my idea that something is not working and that I have to make something else happen because I want to create more work for myself, because that's a story that then I can kind of play out, and I can be the hero in that story who's trying to deal with things that aren't working and be the one who like solves it or something, and be the big director in that moment and make it work. And I don't really want to be that person. So I think to myself, okay, everything's already working. What is happening? How can we work with what is happening? Like when we have 10 Thai children that can't speak English, you know, you just go like, okay, so what's happening is chaos in a certain way. So that's what's working. Like that's what's really working here. And trying to make it not chaos, trying to teach them choreography is not going to happen. It's not happening. So let's like celebrate the chaos. So then from like looking at what is happening or what is working, saying this is working, then I can try to inch myself towards celebrating what is working and try to celebrate what's happening. And usually I can celebrate pretty quickly. Like the energy of celebration is a fast energy. I don't know for other people, but for me, if I'm really authentically celebrating, it's a quick energy. It's like, yeah, yes, you know, and so that things move quickly. But the energy of me having to be the savior in a ship that's going down, in a situation that's not working, is not a fast energy. It's me like, okay, let's do it, man. You know, like let's haul it up. So I think those are some things I try to do. And then I also think of two of my mentors. I often overplay this in my mind. My one mentor, Travis, said to me during grad school, if I was really having a crisis, of which I had several, like really a crisis, you know, in my own mind, it wasn't really a crisis, but in my mind it was a crisis. And he'd look at me and he'd say, it's just a play. You know, like relax, it's just a play, go get a drink. And of course I was highly insulted by that in the moment, because it was like I was in a crisis, an artistic crisis, right? And I was very caught up in my own thing, and he would just cut that. And he wouldn't say it as nicely as I just said it. But he'd say it in such a way, I heard that. And then there were times when I was very relaxed in a way that wasn't useful for the process. Like in a way that I was too much like, everything's fine, it's all whatever, it's fine. And then he'd come in and he'd go, Mira, this is a play. You're doing a play right now, you know? And so I try to think about those two, like I feel like he was teaching me to find some middle space between, like, it's so serious, and it doesn't matter, you're making a play, you know, like you're not like operating on someone's brain tumor right now. It's just, you know, and maybe the brain tumor mentor is like, it's just a brain tumor, relax, you know, because you can't function when you're like tight like that, right? Like you'll stab someone's brain, you know. So I think of that, and then I think of my mentor M. Bogart, my mentor back in New York. She used to say to me, the longer you can stay in the forest, the better. Like the longer you can stay in the dark, the better. The higher the quality of the work. So I think about the mystery, and I think about the unknown, and I think like, and in a way, I feel like the people like you who've stayed with me over years can tolerate a high level of mystery in a way, or not knowing. And, you know, but I've also gotten a lot of feedback from people where it's like, they just are really uncomfortable with the amount of change or the amount of like unknowing that's happening in the space. But for me, I feel like if I can stay in the unknowing, even all the way through the performance, I'm more excited by the work. And so I try to combat that mind that's like, you should be in the clear space. So, yeah.
It's easier to stay calm if you don't have to go on stage.
It's true. Actually, I don't find that personally.
Oh, really?
No, I mean, if I'm on stage, I can handle myself. But if I'm sitting watching people that I've tried to help do something,
Yeah,
I have no control.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to do whatever they do. you know, and sometimes they don't do anything like you thought they were going to do. And you're sitting there going like, what are you doing right now?
Right.
And that's been a really great lesson for me in terms of my ego and control. You know, where it's like at a certain point you have to hand it over and just say, this is yours. And like, I don't have any say in this anymore. And not that I don't get nervous when I go on stage, but I feel pretty relaxed when I'm on stage. And I feel like, you know, whatever happens, I can make work. And if I make mistakes on stage, it's fine. I know how to work with it. But that's, in a way, I'm a more seasoned performer than I am maker of work, I think. I've been performing way longer than I've been making work. So I think I'm still figuring that out, the outer space, which is maybe why I perform in a lot of my work, because I feel more comfortable when I'm in that space with people. And I'm more generous, I think, to people if I'm performing with them than if I'm sitting out watching them. I'm much more critical of what they're doing than if I'm feeling that space with them. And I think that teaches me a little bit about how to be in life too, of like, if I'm in direct communication, if I know that we're on the same plane, which we are always, like whoever I'm in communication with, instead of like, I don't know, witnessing it from the outside or thinking we're not connected, then I feel like I can be with them and really appreciate what they're doing and accept what they're doing, and you know, can I ask you a question now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I was thinking about your dog and your cat, and then I was thinking about that you bought a house recently, and that's a new experience. And so I'm interested in what having a house and making a house has done for you, taught you, or how that's related to your practice at all.
Well, my first answer is I don't know. Yeah, it's been almost a year. Well, I mean,
if you don't want to answer that, I have other questions.
Okay, I'll just say,
You don't have to.
I think it's like everything you think, I don't know how to do this. How am I going to do this? And then you just kind of figure out how to do it. And actually, once you're in it, it's like a whole lot easier than the anticipation. And I don't, it's interesting. I'm not sure, but it's such a huge shift. I mean, it's a huge shift. I lived in my last place for so long, and now I have a backyard. Like, I know it's probably doing something to me, but I don't know yet.
Yeah.
It's freaking great. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's like tolerating something good. I think that's some of the work for me. Tolerating that experience.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right, maybe I'll ask you one more. So some of the things that don't always come up in our work that I notice sometimes come up in other work of yours are things that have to do with politics or social justice, that you might have a different relationship to that. But I'm interested in, there's a kind of arena of themes that we tend to work in, but then there's other interests that you have that I see in other plays that you write.
Yeah.
And but particularly I'm thinking about like the political side and the social justice side, or anything around that. I'd like to hear about your interest in that, how that comes up for you.
Can you say like where you perceive that, like,
you made that play about Michelle Obama.
Oh yeah.
And then you made that play about the Iraqi girl coming over to get her her face surgically fit, and
okay, this
do you remember that? Yeah.
I'm like, oh right.
Yeah. And I think there's other things I can't remember that you've done.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So what was the question? What about that?
So, I'm interested in why those were of interest to you.
Oh, yeah.
Why those felt like they needed to be made.
I think my work, when I'm working by myself, is more driven. It's like when we work together, I feel like we work on a story. And that story is part of the structure, but the other structure is who's in the room. So I wouldn't write dialogue for Antonio like I would write it for other people.
Right. Antonio's a company member of ours.
I tend to write, like, I would say I write much baudier and meaner and dirtier, and when I'm writing for us. And I think also our work exists in this kind of mythic way, even though it always has like this kind of like banality to it, or this like immediacy. So like we're in this, you know, tiger, 2-3 young men going into the woods kind of thing, but then they have these like very specific, very human and sometimes even like contemporary things happening. I guess like with all of the work, I mean, I feel like with all the work, I want it to, you know, illuminate something that I feel like isn't being noticed. And I guess with our work, it's a little more like, I think we're both drawn to trying to stage something that is kind and sincere. And I love that. And but then I also have this side of me that loves like the artificiality of theater and which I guess we do too. We like a lot of like dumb, like physical humor and like making magic out of things. So I guess that's there too. And I think also when I'm writing for myself, there aren't these ingredients, so I can kind of go anywhere. And so, for example, this play I wrote about, based on a true story about an Iraqi girl whose family's home was bombed during the American attacks, and then she was invited to come to UCLA, and the plastic surgery department at UCLA donated facial reconstruction, and so she had like the most state-of-the-art nose job in LA that a person could have, and so that was a piece where it was like I you know, I could kind of with casting and with location and all that stuff just have this freedom. And I think it might also have to do with dance. Like I think I also, some of the things that I write on my own are more, you know, talking about contemporary things where I don't imagine them with dance in them. It's not like they couldn't be done,
right.
But I have more trouble imagining that. I'm more likely to imagine like a song or
a unicorn.
Or a unicorn.
What was the unicorn one?
I started this other play that has a headless unicorn in it. Who shows up, it's like after the apocalypse, there's this headless unicorn. So. And my mom
call me and she'll say, I don't know, I'm working on this play with this headless unicorn after the apocalypse. I don't think there's anything in it. I'm like, that's all you need to know right there. That's like brilliant. Yeah.
I was trying to write my mom into the show as herself, and so that was really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I think.
Can I ask you about your mom?
Sure.
That was a question I had.
Yeah.
And again, I know it's a process, but I'm interested in you going through the process of losing your mother, just saying some things about how that shifted your relationship to yourself and your work, or how you are in the world. It's a big question, but.
Well, I'm not one of those people that says everything happens for a reason. So that's not what I'm saying. You know, my mom died in an accident, and I'll never sign off on that happening. So, and And I'll miss her. I'm gonna miss her the rest of my life, right? You only have one mom. I had a great one. And so, but it's a profound experience, and it's a really, there's a lot of affirming parts of it. I mean, one thing from it being an accident is I feel like it cleared out a lot of bullshit. You know, like a lot of things that I was tolerating or worrying about. I just was like, oh no, not anymore. You know what I mean? It just kind of like levels. It just kind of lets things settle. You know, in what's important, what's not. So it's been really freeing in that way. Like I don't care. You know, about a lot of things that I used to care about. And I feel like, let's do it. You know, let's do it. And I think you really have a relationship with someone after they're dead. I mean, obviously they're gone, but I still talk to her, and I still, like, the love continues, you know, so I still am nurtured by her love, even though she's not here. And I mean, that's been really affirming, is that there's something like just, again, like all of the petty stuff and anything like that was between us, it's just dropped away, you know, for the most part, right? Not entirely, but in this way where I can just appreciate how much she loved me and that she was just doing her best. And so was I, you know. And kind of get to the bottom line more. So that's a huge gift, you know, like my relationship with my family has changed because of that, because it's like, I do not worry about a lot of stuff. Yeah, sometimes somebody in my family, you know, seems like they're being an asshole, but I still love them, and it's like, I just don't worry about it so much. Or I just appreciate, you know, the time I have with them. So yeah. And I could talk about that for the rest of the night, but then I'll just stop there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. So maybe we should do you have other questions?
No, I mean, I do, but I feel like it's good breaking point, and let people move around and see if they're done, or they have questions, or they want to do some kind of, I brought like a writing exercise if people want to do that.
So let's take 10 minutes and we'll come back, have some food.
Cool. Thank you.
Good. So we thought we'd just have a little time for discussion, and then if people, for people who want to do some kind of writing exercise, Sibyl's got some stuff to offer, and for people that don't, they can go, we thought, or something. Yeah?
Yeah, whatever.
Or we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah.
So if anyone has anything they want to offer, it doesn't have to be a question or just thoughts, or just open it after the session for a little while.
Question. When your mom passed, did she pass a long time ago? Or
2 years.
did it change your sense of your idea related to your art, how much time you had left? I mean, did it sort of reestablish?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a way in which, like, as long as your parents are on the horizon, you don't have to really look at the horizon. So, I mean, I think, you know, for me, I take my mortality more seriously. I mean, like, I was gonna say like most people, but maybe not in this room. But, you know, I like to live just pretending that won't happen. But I think now I'm like, oh, it is and it's gonna happen to me even, and it's not like, you know, way over there. So, yeah, I think that's definitely true.
Do you think it influences the subject matter that you write now? You write for, or is it still
Sure. I mean, I wrote a play about my mom within a month or two, like a 1-minute play that actually Mira performed. And yeah, I mean, I think anything that really is filling my heart or that I'm having a strong experience with ends up in my work somehow. I think my mom was probably already in my work in some ways, but it's a little different. I mean, the play Mira performed was about her like moment of death, and then you know, the play I'm working on now, she is herself, but she's obviously not alive anymore. So I guess that reality has permeated my work, and even if part of me still doesn't quite doesn't fully know it, I'm trying to know it in my work, where maybe it's easier, I don't know. We'll see if I can finish that play.
How do we get to see these plays? Are they available?
Well, with the help of Lauren Fenton, who's here in the audience, and Mira, we're finally making a website with our work, and it's going to have videos, but it's also going to have some text, like from the plays. We're kind of talking about how much people would want to read, but I'm game to put the plays up there so people can read them and, you know, watch the video to get a sense of what it's like, because they're just one piece of it, obviously. So, yeah.
I'm interested in, like, you know, when moments like clarity come and stuff, and like being a playwright, like how clear is that? Like, are there tangents of that role, like, and for you, when did you have clarity, like, this is my passion, you know?
As far as being a playwright, I got it from accumulation. It was like I did it for so long that I pretty much had to admit, okay, you're a playwright. You know what I mean? Like, I come from a family where I learned to fear failure, and so I didn't dare say I was anything unless I was, like, you know, at naught. Yeah. So, I mean, I think really going to grad school for me kind of cemented it. Was like, well, looks like you really mean it, you know. Even though I had plays up and I did it, and other people probably thought of me as a playwright, but I didn't dare. You know, I had a lot of hesitation about declaring myself probably anything. Well, that's not true. I only had trouble declaring myself certain things, because there's certain roles that I knew from a very early time that were fine for me to be. But this felt like a little more risky, so it took me a while. And now I'm doing a lot of work with, I love working with new writers and with young people, and just like be like, oh, anyone can do this, you know, kind of demystifying that whole thing of, because I thought, you know, if I was a writer, I would know. I would have been like anointed as a child, and I would have written something and someone would have found it when I was a kid and encouraged me, you know. I'm not saying my parents didn't encourage me, but, you know, I had that idea. But like, well, you couldn't stumble through life without knowing something like that. And really, so anyway, I'm really into permission, you know, and like giving that power, especially to young people, you know, to create something and to ask for space.
I was really struck by when you were talking about the difference between when you're in one of your performances and when you're stepping outside. And I'm wondering if you feel like when you're watching your creation that it is your creation less than when you're in actually performing inside your creation. And how you decide between one or the other at the outset when you are creating. Like, this is an interesting topic.
I feel like I don't really think of any of it as my creation. When I do, I don't like it. But when I'm outside, there's so much to be focusing on. It's like having, I don't know, because I haven't had a child, but I babysat very young children. And you know, it's like if you're watching a 2-year-old, it's like you're constantly having to negotiate things for the child. And feel a little bit like creating a piece of art is a little bit like that, where, you know, it's just like you're constantly trying to make it better, you know. It's not like this is bad, but just kind of how can I help it be the best it can be? Like, how can I create the best conditions for its growth? And so when I'm outside, I feel like that's kind of all I'm focused on. And in a way, like, it's not personal to the people who are on stage. It's not even personal to me. It's like, it's just personal to what's happening, you know, and like how can it be better, you know, how can it be more fun, how can it be more beautiful, how can it be more whatever it was wanting to be, dangerous or whatever it is. And then I don't know so much, it's hard to talk about being inside, I guess, and I almost want to like be inside and try to like speak, because I'm trying to remember now what it feels like to be inside it, but I think in that there's a different quality of attention that's more, I don't know, there's a different quality of attention that's also not really about creating, but about really dealing with what is absolutely necessary in the moment, and in a way a little bit more, like if I'm dancing, it's really dire, like it's really straightforward. Either I have my balance on my leg or I don't. And if I do, there's a set of things I have to think about, and if I don't, there's a set of things that I have to negotiate. And like, if the light is in my eyes, or if it's like, in a way, there's not a lot of room for kind of being in something, like in that way, or like being in the creation of something. It's more just really straightforward, like emergency room level of like, okay, what do you need? Okay, you need to be here. Okay, well, now you need to do this. Okay, now they're speaking to you. Okay, now you're going to do this, and you'd be like, and there's something kind of freeing about, like, I don't know, I feel like performing for me is kind of relaxing in the sense that it's like when I have a day where I know what it is that I need to do, and I can go through the things I need to do, and I may do them badly or I may do them well, but like, I know what the business is for the day. I appreciate a performance when I can kind of attend to those things. But from the outside, it's different. From the outside, it's kind of like, what do you need? What do you need, honey? Do you want that? No, you didn't like that. Okay, do you want this book? Okay, that book's working for you. You know, it's like, what kind of light? Okay, what, do we need the sound louder? No, that wasn't a good idea, and but I'm not so thinking about, like, sometimes I think about it being my work, and again, like, then it's bad. Because then I'm thinking it's my work, which isn't true, actually. It's never my work. It's our work, and it's not even our work. It's like, it's something else that's happening, and it only happens when the audience is in the room anyway, and I don't know whose work it is. I don't know whose creation it is, and that's not that I don't take responsibility for every moment of it. Like, if I'm in there as the director, then I'm taking responsibility for everything. If anything goes wrong, I take responsibility for it. It's not anyone else's fault. If the actors mess up, if the dancers mess up, if the dancers don't look good, it's my fault. It's not their fault. You know, like, I should have made adjustments, you know, or if, like, the set is, it's all on me. But it's still not my creation. It's more like I've agreed to participate in that role of taking responsibility for things. Otherwise, it's too easy to make other people at fault for things that go wrong. And it's not really their fault, you know. And I know as a performer, I mean, it's a slightly different topic, but I know as a performer, like, if I have a director who's asking me to do things that I know are not working over and over, it's like, it's very frustrating, you know. And then I think, well, that's my fault. I'm not listening. You know, I always take it on myself, but I think if something's not working, I try to be the one in the room who can alleviate that situation. And I can't always do that, but I try to do that. So, yeah.
Sibyl, do you have music that inspires you, or a relationship with music? I know you mentioned that you like put a song and stuff like that. There's music in the Tiger's Tale.
Yeah, I feel like I think my one of my writing teachers kind of cued me to this. Right, cued me. But that a lot of times it's like I don't get inspired to make theater by seeing theater, but by seeing visual art or music. So there isn't a particular kind, but that is definitely true. That is definitely true. In fact, I've made a little mix for Mira, so I was working on it this morning, and I thought I should just put something on every time I sit down to write and see what it brings out in me, you know? So, yeah, I think that's definitely true, and I think there's a period of, Lauren and I were talking about this at the break, how I'm the kind of writer, I don't write every day. I'll go through when I have something I'm working on and I'll work intensely, but then I'll take like a month or two and not write a sentence. And I think there for me, I really need this period of like feeding, like whether it's like seeing my friends again or, you know, music, or those things really inspire me and kind of feed me, and they all get kind of into this mix that I don't quite understand, but you know, the source, but that it's going to end up in there somehow, you know. So. A lot of Michael Jackson. A lot of Michael Jackson, yeah. Willie Nelson.
Yeah. Because they're so similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else people have? Yeah, sure.
I was wondering, this idea of kind of relaxing into your art, which is so appealing in the music. But I wonder, I mean, in this kind of, I mean, if you're already thinking like this, you're getting out of this mode, but I'm thinking about when you look to people who you call like the great artists and people that are like really this model. It seems, I feel like there's this history that are always like, they did their craft obsessively for hours a day, you know, and not even, they were so in it that they didn't even think about it, you know, it's just, that was their first impulse. It's not like they even had to think, I want to be really good, so I'm going to practice 10 hours a day. And so, but I was really, kind of like, I really relate to Sibyl, and it's kind of like, I don't want to do it all the time, and I want to do it when I want to do it. But I wonder how you marriage that approach with this. I don't know if you have a feeling for trying to achieve some type of excellence, or if that's even a type of concern. But I guess what would you say to somebody who is also thinking about that, but really likes your process?
Well, I mean, you know, I haven't done that, so I don't know. It might be that you make better art doing it like that. You know, like I might be just like at my never gonna reach my potential, but as of now, I've made that choice and I'm happy with it. You know, I go in and out. Sometimes I think, God, if I just worked a little harder, but I feel like my best work comes out of healthiness and of happiness. You know, not that like, just like when I'm eating well and I'm taking care of myself, I make good work, you know? But I also know, you know, people say, you know, oh, the Beatles, you know, they practiced that 10,000 hours and that's why they got so good. And I probably won't ever do that. So I don't really know. I think it just, maybe that's not in my constitution to do, or I just wasn't put together with that much ambition, you know? For me, thinking too much about success from outside isn't so helpful to my work. Like that's what kind of like drains me of the joy of it. And what I've come to really value and accept that that's my value is like, I just want it to be really fun to make it. And I want a couple people, like maybe, I was saying tonight, maybe I'll just write this next play for you guys to read. Because I know you'll enjoy it and that'll make me happy. And like, maybe that's enough, you know? And then, you know, maybe if other people see it, great. But I do feel like, it's funny, when I remember, I have a lot of judgment about, you know, art, commenting on art and how insular art is, and you know, I really like to think about making work that's really accessible to people, like people could bump into it without having to pay or like be a theater goer. But on the other side, sometimes I feel like I just make work for other people that I love, that I know will really get into it. Like I'm just making this show for Mira, or I'm just writing this play for the other playwrights that I love because I know they'll dig it. And I don't know whether that's bad or good, but that seems to work for my process. And it's not an all or nothing. We're making a website. We want to tour the show. We want to get some grants, you know. Like to have a little money for rehearsal space. So I think it's just a matter of degrees, you know, like experimenting with those impulses and finding like where you get the best ride, you know. It's like, I think of writing a lot as surfing. It's like having all these different elements and finding the sweet spot where you can like do your best and enjoy it and not fall off. And you know. So
there's a really beautiful video on TED Talks that the author I love. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and she talks about how that in ancient times genius wasn't something that you innately have, something that drops in you. So long as she shows up and does her end of the bargain and leave it come or not, she is really workable. She talks about Tom Waits driving along and a song just drops in and he's got no way to write it down, and it's this masterpiece, and he sort of screams at this guy, come back later, you know, I can't do it now. And a poet that used to be out in the fields, and the poem would come barreling over and she'd grab it by the tail and sort of try and write it down in time.
Yeah. Do you have a question? Anything else? So, do people want to do a little writing? If you don't, you can just relax or have some more snacks or home.
Yeah.
So whatever. Do you have my pen?
Probably do. I'm really bad about it. Well, I have this pencil.
Whatever it is.
Need.
Thanks. Because
Okay.
I want to do it too.
Do people have something to write on?
Thanks.
So, do you? Oh, great.
Claire is always prepared.
I just come on the day of school, so I have all my
Yoga up.
So by all means, if you don't feel like doing it, go walk around, or even if you're doing it and you want to sit somewhere else, and readjust yourself, feel free. This is going to be pretty quick, but it uses some of the things I talked about making lists and trying to find ways to kind of get ahead of your thinking brain a little bit. So we'll just go through this really quickly. I won't give you a lot of time, and so don't worry about if you don't get a chance to finish everything. I suggest you write, and if you have trouble, if you're stopping and thinking, just write. What I mean to say is, write those words and just keep writing it until something else comes. What I mean to say is, what I mean to say is, what I mean to say is. So make a list of the 10 greatest forces in the world. And now I want you to write 5 statements of fact.
Sorry?
It's 5 statements of fact. Nope, just 5 statements of fact. Things. It's nighttime in Los Angeles. Could be something you hear. Could be a fact you heard on the news. And then make a list of the 10 greatest obstacles in the world. In the world.
10 greatest.
Obstacles in the world. And now I want you to write a statement, something that you wish for someone you love. And try to make it as specific and concrete as possible. So I wish XYZ for my, or for. And then make a list of the 10 greatest forces in this room. 10 greatest forces in this room. And then I want you to make a list of the 10 greatest obstacles in yourself. Okay, so now we're finished that part. So there's a lot of different lists you could make, but this is a great way to get started. Just get your hand moving and quickly just generating stuff. And a lot of times it's kind of you'll kind of see what's rattling around in your brain. And sometimes you'll get rid of some of the stuff that you don't need, and you'll get to some of the stuff that's maybe a little more interesting or, deeper or unexpected. So now I want you to go through, you have 4 lists, and I want you to circle one thing in each list. Just make it the thing that stands out to you in that list. And if nothing stands out to you, just pick the last thing in each list. Okay, so just do it really quickly. Circle. And move on to your next one, circle. And again, if you're finding yourself thinking too much, just pick the last one in each list. And then you have your 5 statements of fact, so do the same thing there. Maybe take the last one there. Take your last statement of fact that you got to and circle that. Okay, so can I write something on here? I'll do this.
Yeah.
As we go, just so you can have these in mind. But I hate to.
I think you can erase that. It's okay.
So I'm just going to write these concepts because you can probably This specific format isn't so important, but these steps can be really helpful. So there's generation. So you created all this material, and then there's selection. So right, like I might write a 30-page play, and then I have to find out I only have 3 good pages. So you have to go back in, and then you select things. And we did it kind of arbitrarily tonight, but I think sometimes like your most immediate response to things is useful. And then the next step is sequence and substitution. So, this could just be, you could use this for all different ways to generate material. So for sequencing, I'm just going to give you a couple of prescribed things to do. So I want you to I want you to write the statement, if I am. If I am, and then insert your circled obstacle from your circled obstacle from the world. So if the greatest obstacle is ignorance, say, if I am ignorance. And then write, then I am. And I want you to write, then I am, and insert one of the circled greatest force. And then I want you to take your wish for someone. So I wish my mother was alive. And write that out with room to add to it. And then write because. I wish your wish. And then add because. And then add your statement of fact that you circled. Okay. So just in the interest of time, I'll just leave it at that. But you can imagine we could, a lot of times we'll do lots of, start to string things together. I could give you more combinations and that kind of thing. But you start to see your ideas and your things that you're interested in new relationships, and you start to have two things come together that maybe don't belong together. Right here we're using very clumsy words, if this, then that, but there's a lot of ways you could do that. But the idea is like bringing in something unexpected, maybe into a known situation, can be really, what's the word? Fruitful. Fruitful. So does anyone want to read anything? Want to read any statements? Okay.
If I am laziness, then I am kindness. I wish God to find peace in his long died.
Yeah.
If I'm too much darkness, then I am ocean. And then I wish for Tom to have the success he desires because I want more popcorn.
That's a big popcorn budget you're on.
That's awesome. I'll read mine. If I am doubt, then I am digestion. I wish my partner to experience continuous living because the MacBook Pros have a new high-resolution screen.
Yeah! That's funny. Good. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
So do you do any workshops or anything? How would you, I'm just saying if we wanted to continue on diving into this path, do you recommend anything, or do you teach or give things anywhere?
Well, if you ask, I'll do a workshop. So that's how that works. And then, I mean, there's a lot of good books about writing. Like I like Bird by Bird. Do you guys know that book? Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. And then Bobby McFerrin also has some great interviews of him talking about how he spends 10 minutes improvising every day when he sits down, and he does that with his students. So I can find that link. There's a great interview with him where he talks about that I found really helpful. So yeah.
I like this, the just generation selection and sequence and substitution. That I just feel like I want to think about that more in relation to how I live my life, and thinking about there's all this. There's a lot that's already been generated in my own being, and often I feel like I'm supposed to generate more somehow, but there's already so much that's been generated, and so then to look at what my process is of what I'm selecting moment to moment to be working with, and that maybe there are other things that I could be working with, and or just a deeper relationship to the things I've selected, and then what the sequences that I've the very thought that you could put things in different sequences is very profound, because sometimes it feels like our habits they're fixed in the sequence that we think of things in, and like that's is what it is, right? Like we begin this sentence with I, or it seems very direct, and so just pulling that simple idea out that you could resequence things or substitute other things.
Right.
Substitute a different relationship to yourself or a different relationship to someone else. I think this is a nice, light, playful way to consider things that, to me at least, I'm thinking about how now that might relate to my whole life, how I live my life. So I like that. Thanks.
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about substitution, but that's, just bringing in something else that you need to just, add a little oil to whatever you're working with.
Cool. Anybody have anything else they want to say or add?
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
To be with you.
And thank you again to Caitlin, Jed for setting up, Zima helping with the recording. Everyone's been. Drive home safely. Do you want to switch pens, Sibyl?
Oh yeah, see, I'm a terrible thief.
No, I think these are good. But that's a good pen, so.